Welcome back to another episode. And we're so excited. And I know everybody's sick and tired of hearing me say this every week, but I have fun, right? I think I have fun with this show because it's not what I do full time. It's what I do because I enjoy speaking to other people and learning from them. So with us is no stranger to our show. We have Peter Pescatore with Jet Direct Mortgage. How are you?
Good. How you doing? Good morning, Rhonda.
I am doing fine. So every time I have you on, I feel like sometimes we talk about the market, sometimes we have no agenda. But today I want to actually talk to you about a few things that I think are important. And your insight, I think, is really important on this as well. So people every day adventure into new business ideas and they go into different careers. And more and more, what I'm seeing on social media are people that are stepping into the roles of leadership roles as well as roles of mentorship. So, how do you position yourself inside Jet Direct to be a mentor and a good leader, especially when the market is not very favorable?
Sure. I mean, look, I think it all starts with being a subject matter expert, right? You have to have the experience, you have to have the knowledge. Unfortunately, there's a lot of I'm going to say fake trainers out there or fake gurus out there that they got 2 minutes worth of experience. They go on, they tell everybody what to do, but they never done it themselves. So to me, you have to be able to walk the walk before you talk the talk. So again, it starts with being a subject matter expert, understanding the market, understanding the business you're in, understanding how it functions, and then really at that point, basically, if you feel the need or you feel like you're good enough or in a place in your life where you can mentor somebody else, it's really like it's a great rewarding thing. I mean, I do with my salespeople. I'm on Zoom calls probably 2 to 3 times a month, or whether it be the radio like this. And we have 120 salespeople in the company, and they're constantly sending me emails, texts. What do I do with this situation? How do I handle this? What are your thoughts on that? And it's great because look, I'm able to give my experience, and then the one thing I think that I love that, especially for me, and again, I implore all trainers to do this, is that I have a 10,000 foot view, so I get to see 120 salespeople and get the interactions of like what they do right, what they do wrong, what they could do better, and then I kind of formulate my strategy from that. So it's always evolving. I'm never really staying stagnant. We never have the same talking points time and time again. You're always kind of tweaking and developing and seeing how you can get a little better at your craft.
Sometimes mentorship is about the experience. And right now we are in an ever-changing market.
Sure.
Interest rates are still a little high, inventory is still low, cost of housing, yeah, I can't even say New York, but cost of housing everywhere is expensive. What advice are you giving to your loan officers that might be feeling a little burnt out?
Yeah, I mean, listen, the advice I give to everybody just in life in general is that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing every day and expecting different results. Loan officers traditionally, until really the pandemic, would go to real estate offices, they would go to have coffee with realtors, and they try to get business from buyers agents. That dynamic has greatly changed. The pandemic changed the way that offices function. Most people work virtual or at least a hybrid, so the people aren't there. One of the things I'm imploring my loan officers to do is to get out to open houses because again, you got to understand what the market is and what the market's changed to. In the last 3 or 4 years, it's become an extreme seller's market, meaning that the sellers hold all the cards. So what you're seeing is for every 40 buyers, you have one house or maybe two houses. So where are the buyers? The buyers are at those open houses. So I'm telling my bosses, get to the open houses on weekends. Don't just show up. Call the realtor, find out if they want somebody to help them out with, having people coming in and out, get the realtor's, permission. And then really you're in front of a market of probably at least 20 to 40 buyers every single weekend, just at one open house, let alone if you do two and three or four. But again, to my original point, you need to be changing up what you're doing. What worked in the past doesn't work now and won't work in the future. You have to understand what the dynamic changes are in the market and what's happening and adjust to that.
What I'm seeing a lot of right now on social media and when I am out are realtors and mortgage professionals that are creating their own team and their own branding to help elevate them. Is that something that you think is, I don't want to say worth the time, or what is your opinion about that perspective?
If it's done right, it's effective. If it's done wrong, it's really a waste of time. So you have people out there that basically are trying to go after one marketplace and they're trying to get their name out there. And if you do that, if you do that consistently, it definitely works. The problem I find with most marketing efforts, whether it be branding your team or sending out mailers or postcards, whatever it might be. They do it inconsistently. They don't have a game plan. And without a plan, you're really just running in place. I remember I saw a study, I read it a couple of years back, where it talked about a HOA or a gated community where they came in, they said, okay, who is the number one realtor in your area? And out of the 100 people that they surveyed, there was really nobody that got more than 1 or 2% of the survey. Then they turned around and basically sent out mailers to that same community. They sent 6 mailers 6 times with a fake agent. Let's call him Jim Jabroni. And Jim Jabroni, basically on that mailer, they said that he's the number one agent in the area, and they sent it consistently every 4 weeks, 6 times. So after the 24 weeks, or whatever it was, they came back into the survey again. They said, who is the number one realtor in your area? And I think it was something like 65 or 70% of the people said Jim Jabroni. Now, Jim Jabroni was fake. Didn't have a license, wasn't a real name, didn't even have the realty name was even made up. So you couldn't even Google the actual office, but 65% of the people thought it was real. So marketing efforts done consistently with the game plan absolutely work. But unfortunately, I find that a lot of these teams, or whatever you call it, they kind of do it inconsistently. They call themselves the Smith team, the Jones team, wherever it might be. They kind of go out, they do some marketing, but they're not, they're running one place for, 5 days and they change the game plan, they change it again. That's never going to be effective.
One of the things that I'm seeing right now is teams of people that are going to social media and they're making videos. But unfortunately, when I look at it as a professional, I'm looking at some of their content, and it actually, in my opinion, makes them look less desirable versus more desirable. If
Sure.
you had a loan officer that went out there and started to produce content that you did not agree with, what advice would you give them? Or do you think that they just have a different marketing strategy than you and I?
There's definitely a lot of inconsistencies out there. My company, Jet Direct, we have a marketing director who oversees all content, approves all content, but it is a little bit of a catch-22. It's changing dynamically very quickly in the last couple of years. It used to be where 2 and 3 minute videos were basically what everybody wanted to see. They want education. They want to see how the market works. Now you see people, holding their phone up, doing live videos for 10, 15 seconds. It's the content, not necessarily the delivery. So you want to be professional, you want to dress professionally, you want to look professional, but the content and how long it is actually now drive the market. What do I mean by that? 10, 15-second clips, 30-second clips seem to be what everybody wants. I think in the age of, the iPhones being around for 15 years now, everybody's attention span is gone. So if you can get a quick, whether it be real estate tip or more quick tip, and you can get that out in 15, 30 seconds, you will see plenty of views on your video and you'll get very good results. If you go longer than that, unfortunately, even myself, when I'm looking at videos, whether it be on Instagram or TikTok, wherever it might be, after about 30 seconds, even if it's good content, it's like, okay, next, you're swiping. So, it's really the content and what you're delivering, not necessarily how you're delivering it. Because again, people are consuming content on all different platforms. You got the older generation, the boomers that, just getting into iPads now, maybe they have an iPhone and, they're happy to look at YouTube clicks. And then you got the younger generation on TikTok and Instagram, and, you got 3 seconds to catch their attention before they're on to the next 10 videos. So, but it's the content that really keeps them coming. And I think that's what you really need to focus on. Is the content relevant to what you're looking at? Is the subject matter relevant to what the people are looking for? And if it is, that's where you'll see the viewership go up or the likes go up.
I get solicited a lot, predominantly in, I'll say, LinkedIn, for people saying, let us do your social media, let us enhance this, we're going to do that. There's a difference between creating content and doing social media and having a lead generation funnel.
Sure.
So is having a lead generation funnel something that Jet Direct supports, or do you just say, okay, loan officers, you're doing good. Let's call it for what it is. Caesar, who's one of your top, loan officers, he is remarkable at, first of all, his transformation and keeping himself present. But you don't see that very often, where you could actually track and you're watching the success. And what I'm seeing is more people saying you need to go into a funnel. How does that work in a mortgage scenario?
Yeah. From a mortgage standpoint, what you're really talking about is a CRM or a marketing system that's going to take those leads and create follow-up. So I say this all the time. Caesar does great events. We go to shows, whether it be out of state, in state, wherever it might be. And it's great. If you have a great show and great content, it's one thing. But if you don't have a follow-up, if you don't have a marketing plan after the fact, and to your point, a pipeline funnel that takes them from really being, let's say individuals to warm leads to actual customers to close loans, it's not going to work. So you have to have a marketing plan around that. We do have a marketing team here that helps our loan officers develop that. All those leads that come from whether it be sees his TikTok videos or Instagrams, hopefully he's putting those, and I think he is putting them into our CRM. It's following up on the emails, it's following up on their phone calls, and it's hopefully converting them over time to be clients. And that's really what you need to be doing. The content in itself is one piece, but without the follow-up, without a kind of a game plan for it, it's really nothing unless you're going to basically follow up with those customers and become, close loans.
I love it. Once again, just so I'm reminding everybody, we are speaking with Peter Pescatore with Jet Direct Mortgage. Now, let's jump into something else.
Sure.
We are in a crazy market. How are you handling objections for people talking about the rate and also what that looks like in their monthly mortgage payment?
Sure. And look, it's tough. I mean, listen, your rates are up to, right now we were hovering in the sixes, but they were up as high as 7.5%, almost 8%. So I mean, the cost of money has gone up significantly. I think I saw something where somebody basically bought a house for, let's say, $400,000 in 2019, was at a $2,800 payment, and now that same person, because the rates are 6.5%, is probably around $4,200. So the cost of money is definitely up. People are more savvy and looking for what their interest rate is going to be and how it's going to affect their payment. But the reality is mortgages are mortgages. It's always going to be the cost of money, what your monthly payment is, and then are you comfortable with that monthly payment? So from a standpoint of the borrowers, really, I think the key anytime, whether it be 3% rates or 10% rates, is you have to educate your borrower on how it works. The funny thing about rates, and just nobody really, the average person doesn't understand this. It's just the way mortgages work. You're talking about your debt to income, which is your debt levels, your loan to value, which is how much you're borrowing versus what the house is worth, and then your credit score. Those three things drive your interest rate. So even if the interest rates are ranging from 6.25% to 7%, the person who's putting down more money, who has good credit and low debt levels, is going to get more toward that 6.25%. And the person that has poor credit, is putting very little down and doesn't have a good credit score, is going to get more towards 7%. And that's just how it works. So really my job and my loan officer's job is to educate the borrowers on, look, these are your specific qualifications. This is the range of rates of where they are. And this is how it works. And again, listen, in a market like this, the unfortunate part is you do have a lot of other companies and losses, because most are commission based, that they're a little desperate. And, you see a lot of, how do I say this nicely, BS of what reality is, and shooting sunshine up people's, tookuses. And you have to combat that with the truth. You have to combat that with what the reality is. The nice part about the internet, though, is it's even the playing field from a standpoint of, if I'm quoting a borrower, let's say a 6.5% interest rate, I'll tell my borrowers, like, look, go online, look at 8 banks. If every bank is saying 6.5%, like I am, that's what the rate really is. If somebody's saying 7%, it's because that bank got in trouble for lying, so they're being very conservative. If a bank is showing 6%, it's because they're lying to you and they're trying to hopefully bait and switch it. You see in this, the unfortunate part about mortgages, that you see in this industry a lot, what you see in the same thing with cars. You go online and let's say you drive a Ford Explorer, you see online at Ford.com that you can buy a Ford Explorer for $399 a month, and then you show up to the dealership and they tell you, no, it's actually $625 and $2,000 out of pocket. That's the reality of mortgage too. There's a lot of teaser rates out there where they tell you, okay, the rate is 6.25, but once we get to your specific qualifications, what you qualify, it might be 6.75, and that's the same with 7 other banks.
One of the things that I saw recently on social media, and it kind of reminded me to put, I don't want to say my mortgage hat on. I mean, it's been years, right? Like years since I've really been in the industry, but I work with the industry so closely. There was a segment that I saw on social media where somebody was talking about reminding people about assumable rate mortgages with the FHA. And it was a strategy that they were using where they are looking for people that have mortgages that are FHA that are assumable. So I thought it was a pretty cool, I don't want to say hack, because it's not really a hack, but it's not something that's spoken about. So why don't you take a minute or two just to just explain what an assumable rate mortgage is and how that program works. And then more importantly, if a candidate was available, is that something that Jet Direct can offer service on?
Yeah, definitely. Look, assumable rate mortgages have been around for, God, 30 plus years. FHA is the main one that allows it. It has to be allowed in the note. And what do they mean by assume? Assume means that basically I can take your current loan that you have, let's say $300,000 and 3%, and I can basically, if I qualify, I can take and assume that mortgage and buy your house. That's the positive. The positive is that I can get into a 3% rate. I can assume your mortgage. The difficulty of what the challenge ends up being is that I have to qualify for that mortgage. Now I'd have to qualify for my mortgage anyway, so it's one part. But the second part of that is that let's say your mortgage balance now is 300,000 and you're selling the house for 500,000. I can only assume that 300,000. I can't assume a higher number. I'm only assuming your exact loan terms in your mortgage. That's where it becomes a little difficult to do. Every bank should be able to do it. I'd say 99% of the banks allow it. They do it. It just ends up being difficult in a market like this where the appreciations happen so rapidly that, you know, what you bought your house for 2 years ago is not what you're selling it for it now. It might be $100,000 more, and then the borrower has to come up with that shortfall either through a second mortgage or maybe money down. So that's the only bad thing about that. But look, it's great if you can do it, and it's definitely available. Same thing. Listen, same thing with a lot of these. I'm seeing them now all over the place, and we offer them too, like low down payment mortgages, grants, and whatnot. Absolutely available in the market. But I try to tell customers that come through the door all the time, like for every 1,000 people that apply for the grant, one person gets that grant. There's a limited amount of money. So the other 999 are going to buy the house without that free money. I absolutely implore you to go to every single website. You know, Suffolk County has them, Nassau County. Go try to do them, apply, but don't bank on it. The reality is you're going to need 5% down.
You're hitting it on the head because you have to qualify, right? I remember the Suffolk County Consortium. And when you actually find the grant online, people just love things for free. Let's call it for what it is. You know, they're like, what? I have to go to a class and my income has to be that. So qualifying using a grant is difficult because the purchase prices are so high.
Yeah. So we find basically in Long Island or downstate New York, whatever you want to call it, 99.9% of the time, grant programs, first time home buyer grants, all these things of nature, all the beautiful market employees that you see in the market right now, they just don't work. They work in Georgia, they work in North Carolina, where the values are lower, where your income levels are lower. You know, to give you an example, on Long Island, I think most of the grant programs you can't make past $99,000. So even if you have a family of two making over $100,000, you just don't qualify. And unfortunately, with taxes at an average of $12,000 to $14,000 on Long Island and house prices at an average of 450 plus, there's no way to afford that mortgage with under $100,000 in money. So it's a catch-22. You know, and we see it all the time. So I always tell people, like, listen, like when they come to me, I'm like, look, do your research. I'll tell you how it works. I'll tell you what's out there. But unfortunately, the odds are very slim that you're going to qualify for it.
What is the most popular program you think you're seeing right now?
It's probably conventional 5% down, not because it's a better program than FHA 3% down or 3.5% down. But the reality is this, being that the market we're in is a seller's market, sellers have this and realtors have this illusion that FHA is much tougher to do or get done than conventional. Now, that was true probably 25 years ago, but the regulations and the guidelines changed so drastically. They're almost very similar in how they're structured. And other than the finance part of it, it's really, from a guideline standpoint, they almost mirror each other. But the reality is we're seeing more and more conventional deals because sellers want to see what they think is the strongest deal. So if you're looking from a seller's standpoint, the strongest deal is going to be cash. But a lot of times those cash offers are lower than what they want from value. Second strongest is going to be conventional. Third would be FHA. And fourth would be probably like a first-time home buyer, Sony May, something of that nature. So when the sellers and the realtors see, you know, if they can't get cash, let's say, the first thing they see is a conventional offer, they'll usually go with that conventional offer over FHA, VA, or Sony May.
I recently had a client that came to me and he was interested in doing a VA loan 100% down. And I had to actually break it to him that good luck. You know, I was like, I don't want to be mean. I thank you for your service. But if you think somebody's going to allow you to get into a house, no money down here on Long Island, it's highly unlikely.
Yeah. So when I'm dealing with VA clients, one of the tricks or the hacks that I try to tell them is like, listen, just because I'm going to do 100% financing for you, understand if you're not offering the seller some kind of down payment or earnest money deposit, they're going to go with another offer. So I usually suggest, look, as much as you're going to finance 100% of the house, let's say the house is worth 400,000, you're going to finance 400,000 because it's 100% financing, but you need the offer the sellers probably $20,000 or $25,000 down so they feel comfortable going with your deal. Because the reality is you're putting no skin in the game, so it makes a lot of sellers nervous. And again, going back to what I said before, it's such an extreme seller's market. You're not talking about a regular seller's market. I'm serious about those numbers. 40 home buyers to every house available. That's the average. You know, some houses are getting 60, 70 people that you're seeing bidding wars on a regular basis. So someone coming in with an offer saying, hey, I'm a solid VA borrower, but I'm putting 0% down, compared to a conventional borrower that wants to put 20% down, which is, you know, somewhere around $80,000 or $100,000 depending on the property. What deal are you going to take as a seller, especially when you know you have the options?
Understood completely. Once again, we are talking with Peter Pescatore, Jet Direct Mortgage. If you had one last piece of advice to give to our listeners, what would that be?
Yeah, you want to find a lender you're comfortable with. Not all lenders are the same. The dirty secret is our rates are very much going to be the same across all the banks, but the reality is bigger banks do things differently than smaller lenders. There's specifics to every single market that make your experience either a very good experience and smooth, or it makes it very rough. CVO issues are prevalent all over Long Island, back decks that nobody ever got the CVO for, second story additions, all these things. Local lenders basically can work around these. If you go outside of state and use somebody from Illinois or one of the bigger boys, they might not get around those stuff. And people find out the hard way when they're 3-4 weeks in the contract. And again, it is not a forgiving market. So these sellers are more than willing to put the house back on the market and say, okay, sorry, buyer, sorry, not sorry. I'm going to put I'm going to relist the house. It's been 45 days. So my suggestion is always go with somebody local, go with somebody that you trust. Shop around, get to 2 or 3 banks, talk to 2 or 3 people. But once you find somebody you trust and you think they have a good reputation, go with them. Don't shop too long, because again, in this market, you don't have the time to.
I love it. Well, once again, Peter Pescatore, Jet Direct Mortgage. Peter, thank you so much for joining us again. Look forward to having you back real soon. Stay tuned. We're getting ready to bring you information on our next guest.